Hello everyone. Today we will start a new chapter that is devotional paths to the divine. This isn't just about history, it is about how ordinary people through bhakti and Sufi movements transformed religion in India, making it more personal, emotional and accessible. From bhajans and kirtans in temples to qawwalis in dargah, these movements shape India's spiritual and cultural fabric. And yes, this is directly relevant for UPSC and UPPSC, especially for question on Indian culture, medieval history, and even GS for ethics. Traditionally, religion in medieval India was dominated by rituals, Sanskrit text, and priestly authority. But people began asking, isn't there a simpler, more personal way to reach God? This gave rise to Bhakti and Sufi movements. The core message was simple: God lives in everyone. True devotion is through love, compassion, and surrender, not just rituals. Both Bhakti and Sufi movements had a huge socio-cultural impact. They broke barriers of caste, community, and gender, strengthened vernacular languages like Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, Tamil. They also promoted social harmony during times of political fragmentation. Even today, whether in a Sufi dargah or a temple, their legacy of love and inclusiveness lives on. Now let's focus on Bhakti movement, one of the most important spiritual and social reforms trend in medieval India. The Bhakti movement taught that anyone, regardless of caste, gender, or social background, could reach God through sincere devotion. Rituals and priestly mediation were not necessary. What mattered was bhakti or heartfelt love for the divine. Before we dive deeper into the Bhakti and Sufi, let's step back and see how religious ideas evolved in India over time. Now, in the beginning, people worshipped local spirits, nature gods, animals, and fertility deities. Religion was closely linked to the everyday survival, rain, crops, and protection from diseases. Now, how it shifted towards one supreme god. With the rise of larger kingdom and more complex societies, religious ideas also evolved. People began to believe in the idea of single supreme god, one who could guide humans beyond worldly problems. This was linked to the idea of moksha, meaning liberation from the endless cycle of birth and rebirth. Let's look at the role of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, part of the Mahabharata, became a key turning point. It taught that bhakti was a simple and powerful path to salvation, available to all people, regardless of caste or gender. Alongside, it emphasized karma, jnana, and bhakti as valid path. So why this was revolutionary? Religion became more personal and less dependent on rituals or priestly mediation. This laid the foundation for the Bhakti movement that spread across India in the coming centuries. Now let's look at this section, a new kind of Bhakti in South India, Nayanars and Alvars. Now during 7th to 9th century CE, the Bhakti movement gained momentum in South India through the effort of two group of poet saints, that is the Nayanars and the Alvars. The Nayanars were devoted to Lord Shiva, while the Alvars worshipped Lord Vishnu. What made this movement remarkable was its inclusiveness. These saints came from various social backgrounds, including communities considered low in the caste hierarchy, such as Ulayyars and Panars. This showed that bhakti was open to all, regardless of caste or social status. So, who were Nayanars and Alvars? The Nayanars and Alvars rejected the rigid caste system and formal rituals that dominated religious life at the time. They also distanced themselves from Buddhism and Jainism, which were influential in the region. Instead, they focus on personal devotion and emotional connection with God, emphasizing that sincere love and faith were more important than birth or ritual purity. Now, these saints composed numerous devotional poems and hymns in Tamil, which combined the spirit of bhakti with themes from earlier Tamil literature like love and bravery. Their songs were often sung in temples and public gatherings, helping spread the bhakti messages widely. The lives of these saints, recorded in their biographies, which is called hagiographies, provided valuable insight into the early bhakti movement and its social impact. Now, between the 10th and 12th centuries, the Chola and Pandya kings recognized the importance of the bhakti movement. and supported it by building magnificent temples at places associated with these saints. This royal patronage connected the Bhakti movement with temple culture, giving it a strong institutional base. Temples became center for worship, cultural activities, and social gathering, further promoting the ideals of devotion and equality. Now, Nayanars, as you know, they were devotees of Shiva. There were 63 Nayanars, and they were active primarily between the 7th to 9th centuries. Now they represented the wide range of caste and occupation, like potters, peasants, hunters, brahmins, soldiers, chieftains, even those considered untouchables like manual worker. This shows the inclusiveness and anti-caste nature of early bhakti. Now there were some famous saints were Apar, Sambandar, Sundarar, Manikava Sagar. Now let's look at their literary contribution. Like Tevaram, it is a collection of devotional hymns by Appar, Sambandar and Sundarar. Now Tiruvakam, it was composed by Manikka Vasagar. These works are key source for understanding Shaiva Bhakti in Tamil Nadu. Now let's get to know little more about Alvars. They were the devotees of Vishnu. They were 12, and social background was they were equally diverse caste origin, showing a non-elitist religious appeal. Now some famous saints are Periya Alvar, Andal and his daughter, the only woman Alvar. Divya Prabandham, it is a compilation of their Tamil hymns in praise of Vishnu. These verses are considered the Tamil Veda in Sri Vaishnava tradition. Now let's take a look at the composition given here. After reading this, we have to answer, how does the poet describe his relationship with the deity? Now in this poem, Manikkava Sagar is basically saying that he feels super close to the god Shiva. He thinks of himself as not worthy at all. Now it is like just a body full of flaws. But then he said Shiva came into him like his body was a beautiful golden temple. This act made him feel completely better and saved him. Now Manikkava Sagar talks about how Shiva took away all his problems like sadness, being born again and again, and all the confusing stuff in life. He says Shiva set him free. He is filled with happiness and sees Shiva as a light. So he has decided to stick with Shiva forever. He feels like he's found a safe place and will never leave. The poem is all about how much love and respect Manikkava Sagar has for Shiva. He feels like he owes everything to Shiva and is super thankful. He's showing that the most important thing is to really love and be devoted to God just from your heart, which is what the Bhakti movement was all about. He just wants to be with Shiva forever, and that is all that matters to him. Now let's look at philosophy and Bhakti. Let's explore the teaching of two towering Indian philosophers, Shankara and Ramanuja, who offer different but complementary paths to understanding the divine. Now let's dwell a little bit into Shankara's teaching first. Now Shankara was 8th century philosopher from Kerala. He thought about the ultimate reality called Brahman. It is a formless, attributeless, infinite truth. Now he explained that the individual soul, which is Atma, is essentially the same as Brahman, which is essentially same as Brahmana. This means there is no real separation between us and the ultimate reality. According to Shankara, the world is an illusion, meaning Maya, distracting us from the truth. Salvation is true knowledge, realizing that Atma and Brahmana are one and the same. He encouraged renouncing worldly attachment and focusing on this deeper spiritual knowledge. Now let's look at Ramanuja teaching. Now Ramanuja was a great thinker from 11th century Tamil Nadu. He was greatly inspired by the devotional poets called Alvars. They were dedicated followers of Vishnu. He thought that the path of bhakti, deep love and devotion to God is the best way to salvation. Unlike Shankara, Ramanuja believed the soul maintains its own identity. Soul maintains its own identity even after joining with God, meaning the union is one of qualified oneness, Vishishtadvaita, rather than total merging. His teachings made devotion very popular and inspired many bhakti saints across India later on. Both philosophers offered powerful spiritual paths. Shankara emphasized knowledge and realizing the oneness of Atma and Brahmana. Ramanuja highlighted loving devotion as a way to connect with God while maintaining individual identity. Understanding their teaching helps us appreciate the rich diversity of Indian spiritual thoughts. Next is Basavanna's Veera Shaivism. Basavanna was a 12th century social reformer, poet, and saint who started the Veerashaiva or Lingayat movement in Karnataka. He was deeply troubled by the inequalities in society, especially those based on caste, gender, and the dominance of ritualistic practices in religion. Now, Basavanna believed that everyone is equal in the eyes of God, and he strongly opposed the caste system and the idea that only Brahmins could perform religious duties. He also stood against the mistreatment of women and promoted their right to participate in religious and social life. Basavanna and his companion like Allama Prabhu and Akka Mahadevi rejected idol worship and complicated rituals. Instead, they promoted personal devotion to Lord Shiva, symbolized by wearing a small linga around the neck. Now, the followers were called Veerashaivas or Lingayas. Basavanna also wrote many short poems called Vachanas in simple Kannada, which spread message of equality, devotion, honesty, and humility. His ideas laid the foundation for a more just and inclusive society, where inner purity was more important than outward rituals. One of the Vachanas is given here. In this Vachana, Basavanna is saying that while the rich can build physical temples for Lord Shiva, he offers his own body as a temple. Basavanna is offering his own body as a temple to God, showing that inner devotion is more valuable than building physical temples. Now let's look at the saints of Maharashtra. During the Bhakti movement in Maharashtra, many saints poets emerged who wrote and sang in simple Marathi. Their songs continue to inspire people even today because of their deep meaning and accessibility to common people. Some of the most well-known saint poets were Jananeshwara, Namdev, Eknath, and Tukaram, as well as women saints like Sakhubai and the family of Chokhamela who came from the so-called untouchable Mahar caste. Now this shows that the movement was inclusive, welcoming people from all caste and background, including those traditionally discriminated against. These saints focused on devotion on Vithala, a form of Lord Vishnu, who is worshipped in Pandharpur. However, their real message was about having a personal relationship with God, who they believed lived in the heart of every person, not just in temples or rituals. They rejected all forms of ritual, caste discrimination, and outward display of devotion. Unlike many religious traditions that promote renunciation, meaning leaving family to seek God, these saints chose to live with their families, earn a living, and serve others with compassion and humility. Their message was deeply humanistic. They believed true devotion meant understanding and sharing the pain of others. This is beautifully expressed in the words of Narsi Mehta, who said they are Vaishnavas who understand the pain of others. Now, here a hymn is given. Read the hymn and discuss the idea about the social order expressed in this composition. Now, the Abhangs of Tukaram and Karma Mela express strong opposition to caste discrimination and promote equality and compassion. Tukaram says that a true saint is one who supports the poor and oppressed, calling such a person God in person. Karma Mela questions God for creating untouchability and forcing his community to live in shame. Both poems reflect the Bhakti movement's message that true devotion lies in serving others and rejecting social injustice. Now the next is Nathpanthis, Siddhas and Yogis. During medieval times in India, groups like Nathpanthis, Siddhacharas and Yogis began to question the established religious practices and the social system, especially the importance given to rituals and the division of people into caste. They believed that true spiritual progress did not depend on performing complicated temple rituals or following the rules set by priest and society. Instead, these groups taught that anyone could achieve salvation by focusing on a formless, universal God that did not have any specific shape or image. They encouraged people to seek this ultimate reality through personal effort, mainly by practicing yoga, breathing exercises, and deep meditation. According to them, these practices help control the mind and body, leading to spiritual growth. Their ideas were especially attractive to people from lower caste who often felt excluded from mainstream religious life. The Nathpanthis, Siddhacharas, and Yogis offered a path to spiritual freedom that did not require the approval of priests or adherence to caste rules. By spreading these teachings, they challenged the existing social and religious order and inspired later movements, like the Bhakti movement in northern India. The Bhakti movement also emphasized personal devotion to God and rejected the importance of caste and rituals, continuing the ideas first put forward by these earlier groups. Bhakti. Now, after Bhakti, let's now understand the Sufi movement, the mystical dimension of Islam that deeply influenced medieval Indian society. Now, Sufi saints guided their followers not just through religious texts but through life lessons of kindness, humility, and tolerance. They emphasized equality and welcomed people from all backgrounds, breaking down the boundaries of caste, religion, and class. One of the most beautiful aspects of Sufism is its use of music and poetry. Now, Sufis were Muslim mystics who believed that the best way to connect with God was through love, devotion, and kindness, rather than just following strict religious rules. They shared a lot common. They shared a lot in common with the Bhakti saint poets of India, who also focused on having a deep personal relationship with God and often set aside complicated rituals. While traditional Islam emphasized belief in single God and following detailed religious laws known as Sharia, Sufis took a different approach. They thought that what really mattered is the love you feel for God, comparing it to the longing of a lover for their beloved. For Sufis, this emotional connection was more important than outward display of religion. To express their feeling and spiritual insight, Sufis wrote poetry, stories, and fables. Some of the most famous Sufi writers like Rumi, Ghazali, and the Shadi of Siraj created beautiful works that are still read today and loved. Like groups such as Nathpanthis, Siddhas, and Yogis, Sufis believed in training both the heart and the mind to see the world in a spiritual way. They used special practices to help them do this, like zikr, which means repeating or chanting God's name to keep their focus on the divine. Sama means listening to or singing spiritual music. Raqs, meaning dancing in a way that expresses spiritual joy and helps them feel closer to God. Breath control, using breathing exercise to calm the mind and body. Meditation and parables, reflecting deeply and learning through stories with spiritual lessons. Now, Sufi didn't usually walk this path alone. Each Sufi would have a spiritual guide called a Pir, who would help them grow and learn. Over time, different groups of Sufis formed, each following their own special way of practice known as a silsila, meaning spiritual lineage, and tariqa, meaning method. Starting from the 11th century, many Sufi saints traveled from Central Asia and made India their home. Their influence became even greater after the Delhi Sultanate was established, as Sufi centers began to appear in many parts of the country. One of the most important Sufi groups in India was Chishti order, known as the Chishti Silsila. This order included some of the most respected and loved Sufi saints, such as in Ajmer, Delhi, Punjab, Gulbarga. These saints set up special places called khanqahs, hospices, where people could come together. These gatherings were open to everyone, whether someone was rich or poor, a king or a commoner, they were all welcome. People visited these khanqahs for different reasons: to talk about spiritual and religious topics, to ask for blessings and help with their personal problems or difficulties, to enjoy sessions of spiritual music and dance known as Sama. Many people believed that these Sufi saints had special miraculous powers, such as the ability to heal the sick or solve difficult problems. When a saint passed away, their tomb, called a dargah, became a holy place where people of all religions could come to pray, seek blessing, or pay their respect. In summary, the arrival and the teachings of the Sufi saint, especially those of the Chishti order, created a strong tradition of spiritual gathering, kindness, and unity in India. Their khanqahs and dargahs became center of hope and inspiration for people from every walk of life. Now let's look at these lines. In this poem, Rumi is expressing a deep mystical idea that God cannot be found in external places like religious building or through formal rituals and philosophy. He says he searched for God in Christian crosses, Hindu temples, mountain valleys, the Kaaba, philosophical teachings, but he did not find God in any of those. Finally, when he looked into his own heart, he realized God was within him all along. Rumi is teaching that the divine is not outside, but inside us. Real connection with God comes not from external search, but through inner reflection, love, and more personal spiritual experience. Next is new religious developments in North India. After the 13th century, the Bhakti movement in northern India became much stronger and more varied. This was a time when different religious traditions such as Islam, Hinduism, Sufism, and the teachings of the Nadpanthis, Siddhas, and Yogis were mixing and influencing each other. Now, during this period, towns and kingdoms were expanding, and the people were starting to take on new types of jobs and social roles. Everyday people like craftsmen, farmers, traders, and laborers were especially attracted to the teaching of Bhakti saints and played a big part in spreading their messages. Now, there were different styles of Bhakti saints. Now, some saints like Kabir and Guru Nanak rejected all formal religion and focused on a universal message of love and devotion to God. They did not believe in dividing people by religion or caste. Some were traditional but inclusive, like Tulsidas and Surdas, who accepted traditional Hindu beliefs but made them easy to understand by using local languages. Tulsidas wrote the Ramcharitmanas in Awadhi, telling the story of Rama in a way everyone could follow. Surdas wrote beautiful devotional poems about Krishna, collected in works like Sursagra. The saint Shankaradeva promoted devotion to Vishnu and started the tradition of Namghars, community prayer halls, that are still important today. Other well-known saints include Dadu Dayal, Ravidas, and Mirabai. Now, Mirabai was a Rajput princess and a disciple of Ravidas, who came from a so-called untouchable caste. She wrote many passionate songs for Krishna and openly challenged caste rules. Her songs became very popular in Rajasthan and Gujarat. So most Bhakti saints wrote and sang in regional languages, making their teaching accessible to everyone. Their songs and poems were passed down by word of mouth, especially by ordinary people and women, who sometimes added their own feelings and stories. Because of this, Bhakti songs became a living part of a popular culture and are still loved and sung by people today. Now read this song composed by Mirabai and try to answer the question given here. Let's take a closer look at teachings of Kabir. Kabir was unique because he questioned and criticized the religious practices of both Muslim and Hindus. He rejected rituals, idol worship, and the caste system, power of priest. Instead, he taught that God has no form or shape and that the best way to reach God is through sincere love and devotion. Now, Kabir's thoughts are found in a short poems called Sakhis and Pas. These poems were shared by wandering singers and later collected in important books like the Guru Granth Sahib, Panchwani, and Bijak. He wrote in a simple, everyday form of Hindi so that ordinary people could understand. Sometimes he used clever or symbolic language to express deeper truth. Now, Kabir's followers included both Hindus and Muslims. His poetry and teachings continue to inspire people today, especially for their emphasis on unity, devotion, and equality among all people. Now, here a composition is given. This composition by Kabir shares many similar ideas with those of Basavanna and Jalaluddin Rumi, though each expresses them in a unique way. Kindly read it. Read it and try to answer the questions given here. Now let's take a closer look at the teachings of Baba Guru Nanak. Now, Guru Nanak was born in Talwandi, which is in present-day Nankana Sahib in Pakistan. He traveled widely and interacting with various communities before establishing a spiritual center at Kartarpur on the banks of river Ravi. Before his death, he appointed Guru Angad as his successor, who compiled Guru Nanak's hymns and created the Gurmukhi script for their preservation. Now, Guru Nanak strongly emphasized that there is only one God. all could access God without intermediaries or rituals. He condemned caste and gender discrimination, spreading the message that all people are equal. His, he focuses on right worship, meaning Nam Japna, which is meditate and to remember God. Honest living, meaning Kirat Karna, meaning earn one's living by honest means. Welfare of others, meaning Vand Chakna, meaning share earnings and wealth, work for the community. Purity, meaning Isnan. Stress on purity of conduct, not rituals, bath. He ridiculed superficial religious practices and ritualism. Guru Nanak initiated the tradition of langar, where everyone, regardless of status or faith, could eat together, emphasizing practical equality. Now he established dharamsalas, now Gurudwara, as sacred spaces for worship and congregation. Guru Nanak's hymns and teachings were compiled in Guru Granth Sahib, providing spiritual guidance for followers. Now his ideas influenced social reform and the Sikh movement, which grew under later gurus to have political and social significance. Towns like Amritsar developed around Gurudwaras and became core to the community's growth. Let's take a closer look at Martin Luther and the Reformation. Martin Luther was a German monk and theologian. He was the key figure behind the Protestant Reformation in Europe. Now, Martin Luther lived in Germany and was deeply concerned about the corruption and practices of Catholic Church, especially the selling of indulgence, meaning certificate for pardoning sins for money. In 1570, he published his 95 Theses, a list of arguments against such practices, by nailing them to the church door in Wittenberg, Germany. This act marks the start of the Reformation. So why was the Reformation important? Luther argued that the faith alone was needed for salvation, not rituals, priest, or buying indulgence. He said anyone can read the Bible and pray directly to God without a priest as intermediary. Luther translated the Bible into German so that ordinary people could read it themselves instead of relying on priests who read it only in Latin. The printing press enabled Luther's idea and the Bible to spread quickly, empowering common people to question church authority. Now, Luther's critique illustrates how individual protest and new ideas can derive sweeping religious and social change, like the Bhakti movement in India. The Reformation exemplifies questioning authority, urging honest worship, and the empowering ordinary people. Key themes in the global history of devotion and reform. Now, let's match the following. The Buddha, he questioned social differences. He rejected caste inequalities and social ritual sacrifices. Shankaradeva, Namghar. Nizamuddin Aulia, Sufi saint. Alwars, they were the worshipper of Vishnu. Now, Nayanars, they were the worshipper of Shiva. Alwars, they were the worshipper of Vishnu. They devotional poet saints of Tamil Nadu. They were deeply devoted to Lord Vishnu. Now the next is fill in the blanks. Shankara was an advocate of Advaita philosophy. He taught that Brahman alone is real, the word is Maya, and the Atma is equal to Brahmana. Now the next is Ramanuja was influenced by the Alvars. Now the next is Basavana, Lama Prabhu, Akka Mahadevi were advocates of Veera Shaivism. Now they oppose caste system and ritualism. They emphasize worship of Shiva through personal devotion. Now Pandharpur was an important center of Bhakti tradition in Maharashtra. It is famous for Varkari saints like the Janeshwara, Namdev, Tukaram, Eknath. Now the next is describe the belief and practices of Nathpanthis, Siddhas and Yogis. Now Nathpanthis followed the Nath sect founded by Guru Gorakhnath. They practice intense meditation, yoga postures, breathing exercises and mental discipline to attain spiritual enlightenment. They rejected rigid social and ritualistic norms and became popular among lower caste. Siddhas were considered perfected beings who had mastery over spiritual and physical realm, including alchemical and healing practices. They focused on self-realization through advanced yogic technique. Now, yogis broadly refers to practitioners of yoga and meditation who sought union with the divine through disciplined control of body and mind, often leading alone and renounced life. All three groups shared beliefs in renouncing worldly life, practicing intense mental and physical training, and valuing personal spiritual experiences over traditional rituals and caste restriction. Their teaching helped popularize devotional and yogic practices, especially in northern India, influencing later bhakti movements. Now, the next is, what were the major ideas expressed by Kabir? How did he express these? Now, he rejected religious divisions. He thought that he worshipped the same God, only the name differ. He opposed meaningless rituals, idol worship, and external show of religion. True religion, in his view, true religion lies in sincere love and devotion to God, not in outer practices. Kabir strongly criticized the caste system, untouchability, and social discrimination. He believed all humans are equal before God. Kabir strongly criticized the caste system, untouchability, and the social discrimination. He believed all humans are equal before God. He emphasized on personal experience of the divine through bhakti and inner purity, rather than relying on priest or books. He stressed tolerance, harmony, and love for all communities. So how did Kabir expresses these ideas? Through dohas, which were short, simple, and powerful verses in the local language. He used everyday imagery like potter, weaver, washerman, rivers, birds to explain deep spiritual truths. His style was oral and direct, making his teaching accessible to common people. Now, example of a doha is कबीरा खड़ा बाजार में लिए लुकाती हाथ, जो घर फूके आप ना चले हमारे साथ. Meaning, only those who burn away their ego and attachments can walk with me. Next is, what were the major beliefs and practices of the Sufis? Now, Sufism is a mystical approach to Islam. It focused on the inner spiritual dimension of Islam, aiming for a direct personal experience and closeness to God in this life itself. Sufis emphasize the oneness of God and strive for complete union with the divine through love and devotion. The goal is to purify the inner self by removing negative traits and cultivating virtues like love, compassion, humility, and selflessness. Now, all humans are equal in God's eyes, transcending social, caste, or religious divisions. Now, the major practices of the Sufis were, they practiced celibacy, poverty, and detachment from worldly pleasure to focus on spiritual goals. They repeated the names of a god, meaning zikr or sacred phrases in meditation to cultivate constant remembrance of God. Now, there were Peer, or meaning Sufis follow a guide who leads them on the spiritual path through teaching or personal example. Now, they emphasize on helping others and practicing kindness as part of spiritual growth. Next is, why do you think many teachers rejected prevalent religious belief and practices? Now, many teachers rejected prevalent religious belief and practices because they saw that religious practices had become overly focused on external rituals, ceremonies, and elaborate formalities, which they believed distracted people from the core spiritual goals like inner purity, devotion, and direct connection with the divine. The rigid caste system and social hierarchies were deeply ingrained in prevailing religious norms. Many teachers opposed these inequalities and the exclusion of lower caste and marginalized group from religious participation. Religious authorities often promoted orthodox interpretation and rigid dogmas that discouraged questioning and personal experience. Reformers sought to make spirituality accessible and inclusive. The existing beliefs sometimes emphasize priests and intermediaries instead of fostering a direct emotional and heartfelt relationship between the individual and the divine. Now, the reformer wanted to revive spirituality by emphasizing personal devotion, universal love, equality, and inner transformation, encouraging a more inclusive and meaningful religious experience. In short, teachers rejected prevalent belief and practices to promote a simplified, heartfelt, egalitarian, and direct approach to spirituality that could reach and empower all people beyond social and ritualistic barriers. This reformist spirit is evident in the Bhakti and Sufi movements, among others. Next is, what were the teachings of the Baba Guru Nanak? Now, Guru Nanak taught that there is only one supreme, formless and eternal God, who is the creator of everything. God is beyond gender and physical form, but is present everywhere and accessible to all. He strongly emphasized that all people are equal regardless of caste, creed, religion, or gender. He condemned discrimination and social inequalities. According to him, everyone can have a direct relationship with God without needing priest or elaborate rituals. Meditation and remembrance of God's name are central to spiritual practices. Now, Guru Nanak states living honestly by earning a livelihood through hard work and integrity without cheating or exploitation. Now, sharing one's wealth and resources with others, especially the needy, is an important duty, fostering community and mutual support. Now, he rejected meaningless rituals, empty ceremonies, and superstitions, urging followers to focus on spiritual devotion and ethical living. Now, Guru Nanak preached love, compassion, justice, and encouraged helping the poor and fighting against oppression and fanaticism. He taught that the spiritual love and the worldly duties should be integrated. One could attain salvation while living a normal family life. Next is, for either the Vaishyavas or the sons of Maharashtra discuss their attitude toward caste. The Vaishyavas or Lingayats emerged in 12th century in Karnataka, led by Basavanna and his followers. They strongly opposed caste distinction and the untouchability. For them, all devotees were equal before Shiva. All devotees were equal before Shiva, which is their chief deity, worshipped in the form of Linga. They rejected Brahmanical dominance and priestly authority. Social status was not determined by birth but one's devotion and conduct. Vaishyavas encouraged intercaste marriage, community dining, and collective worship, breaking social barriers. They gave special respect to women and emphasized equality in spiritual practices. Now let's see the sons of Maharashtra's attitude toward caste. The Maharashtra saints like Jananeshwara, Namdev, Eknath, Tukaram also rejected caste hierarchies. They taught that devotion is superior to birth, ritual, or caste identity. Many saints themselves came from lower caste or marginalized group, which gave strength to their message. They criticized both Brahmanical orthodoxy and social discrimination. Their teaching, composed in the local Marathi language, reached ordinary people and broke elite control over religion. They emphasized inner devotion, humility, and equality, creating a space where anyone could worship God. Now the next is, why do you think ordinary people preserve the memory of Mirabai? Now Mirabai's life itself was a story of courage and devotion. She was a Rajput princess but gave up royal comfort to devote herself to Krishna. She faced opposition from her family and ruling class for rejecting traditional roles of women and refusing to worship family deities. She composed bhajans expressing her unconditional love for Krishna. Her poetry was in Rajasthani, making it accessible to common people. She mingled with saints and ordinary devotees, breaking caste and gender barriers. She became a symbol of resistance against rigid norms of caste, gender, and power. Her songs carried powerful emotion, love, surrender, and defiance, which connected with the masses. Bhajans were sung in a village, temples, and gatherings, ensuring her memories lived on. She represented the idea that devotion is not a birth or a status. It was the true path to God. Now in the next video, we will start with the new chapter, that is the making of regional cultures. Thank you.